Welcome to Between Two Coaches, a Digital Mentors podcast for visionary coaches, consultants, authors, and experts building purpose-driven businesses. I'm your host, Norbert Orlewicz, co-founder of Digital Mentors. And in every episode, we're going to dive into real, unfiltered conversations with thought leaders, mentors, and catalysts who are reshaping the way that we teach, lead, and grow. Now, as always, this episode is brought to you by our Digital Mentors Compass Workshop. If you are a coach or expert struggling to stand out in the marketplace and enroll clients consistently, this workshop was built for you. It's a strategic experience that combines expert mentorship with AI-assisted tools designed to simplify your message and sharpen your marketing strategy. You're going to walk away with a personalized marketing roadmap built for your business, your goals, and your voice. Grab your free ticket for the next live session at compassworkshop.com. Again, that is compassworkshop.com. Now, today's guest is a perfect fit for this because we're going to be talking about messaging and presentations. And I'm so excited to bring on today's guest, Dr. Danny Brassell. He is a highly sought after speaker, trainer, and coach known as the Jim Carrey with a PhD. Dr. Danny has spoken to over 3,500 audiences worldwide. He's authored 19 books, including Leadership Begins with Motivation and Misfits and Crackpots. We're going to talk about that one. That one's interesting. The co-founder of the WellCrafted Story Workshop, Danny helps entrepreneurs, individuals, and organizations leverage speaking on stages as a major client lead source that actually converts. All right, Dr. Danny, welcome to this conversation. It's great to have you here.
Thanks so much for having me, Norbert. More importantly, thanks for all you do. We do a lot more of you. You're spreading joy around the world. I appreciate you.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, it's great to have you here. And man, I'm interested to dig into your story. You said that your autobiography would be called Pivots. And I can totally appreciate and understand that as an entrepreneur now for 20 years. Pivot seems to be the defining focus of entrepreneurs. And this goes from avoiding bankruptcy, which is what pushed you into doing the work that you're doing right now. You're a published author of like 19 different books. So tell us a little bit about your background, your story, and how did we get to this place here now?
Yeah, I mean, again, if I was going to write an autobiography, it would be called Pivots because I feel like I've already lived 9 lives, Norbert. 30 years ago, I was a journalist, got to cover President Bush Sr. in the 1992 presidential campaign, and I loved my job. I got to meet every editor of every major daily, and one editor offered me the City Beat for $16,500 a year. Meanwhile, a friend told me they were hiring teachers in South Central Los Angeles for $25,000 a year. So I became an educator for the noblest of reasons, Norbert, for the high pay. And it was ironic. I actually fell in love with teaching. I've taught all age levels from preschoolers all the way up to rocket scientists. I can make that claim because I used to teach English as a second language to engineering students at the University of Southern California. And in 2005, my wife and I attended a real estate seminar, which turned out to be a scam. And we lost everything. And I could give you the woe is me story, but I'm a positive person. I learned a lot from the experience. First of all, I learned that my wife is my soulmate. I put her through the ringer and she stood right by me. She's an incredible human being. Second of all, I no longer put all my value on money because I learned you can lose money just like that. Third, I try not to judge other people, Norbert, because if I was somebody who saw what I had done, I would have said, well, you deserve that. But now I realize unless you know everything about a person, you really don't know anything about a person. Fourth, I became a Christian, which I'm always embarrassed that it took a catastrophe to draw me that way. But the more I read my Bible, I'm not the first screw up to find Jesus. And fifth, and this probably applies most to our listeners today, is I didn't want to file for bankruptcy. And my accountant said, well, you have to earn this much more money than this year. And so I started speaking on the side, and I hit that number right on the number. Well, then the next year, Norbert, you gave me a much higher number. I get that number right on the number. So in year 3, I thought, well, maybe I should set a higher number. And basically, during one of the worst economic downturns in world history, I was able to build up a highly lucrative speaking business, which eventually drew the attention of some pretty famous people and companies who asked me to coach them. And I got to confess, I resisted coaching for a long time, Norbert, because you need to know this about me. I'm obsessive compulsive. I have a very high standard for my students, and I will not let you fail. I will be on your back, holding you accountable until you succeed. Well, now that I work primarily with entrepreneurs and executives and business owners, I find that they're highly motivated. They do the work. It's probably been the most gratifying thing that I've ever done. So that's a very long answer to your short question.
No, I'm sure that do you have an autobiography or
No, nobody needs to read that.
I think at some point you might have to publish one. I'm sure that it would be entertaining. Now, you say that you've spoken on more than 3,500 stages, and you kind of brushed past it too. You know, you said you didn't want to file for bankruptcy, so you got into speaking and you hit your income target the first year. Now, there's a lot of people that want to become speakers, kind of like a lot of people want to write and publish a book, but very few people can build a successful speaking career. Can you just share with us what happened in that first year to allow you to actually create income in the first year of you being a speaker? What do you attribute your success to in that first year? Coming from being a teacher, a journalist, a teacher, and then all of a sudden you take off with your speaking career.
Nobody's ever asked me that question, Norbert. So that's a great question. When I was a teacher, whether I was teaching my little ones or my older ones, as they left my classroom, every day they had to hear the same refrain. I always said, remember, kids, education is valuable, but execution is priceless. Knowledge is not power. Only applied knowledge is power. Knowing what the right thing to do and doing the right thing are two very different things. So let's go out, do the right thing, make this world a better place. I've always been an action-oriented person, Norbert. I was at an event a couple of weeks ago, and the two speakers before me were thought leaders. And I was feeling facetious. I got on stage. I'm like, raise your hand if you need another thought. I mean, I'm a results leader. I believe in actually taking action. And so what do I attribute my success in the first year was I worked my tail off. You got to get down and dirty. When people talk about the overnight success, I've never, ever met anybody that was an overnight success. They worked hard, they worked long, and they hustled. I did a lot of different things. I was actually coaching a guy earlier today. He was asking me, he's like, I want to make $10,000 an hour as a speaker. And so I said, do you look like a $10,000 an hour speaker? And he said, well, what do you mean? I'm like, do you have a website? He's like, no. I'm like, do you have a speaking reel? No. Do you have video testimonials of people who have watched you? No. Do you have a brochure? No. I'm like, are you a $10,000 an hour speaker? Once you start looking the part, you'll be the part, but you don't just get there unless you were on Celebrity Apprentice or something. I mean, yeah, a celebrity speaker, I don't even think that counts. And also it's funny because when you go to events, usually the celebrity speakers are the worst speakers, and it's the person you've never heard of. That's the person that just captures everybody's attention. So again, a long answer to your short question. I worked my tail off. I worked for free. Here, I'll give your audience something I did. This is a good action strategy. And so even if I speak for free, I've always done a letter of agreement with whoever I'm speaking for. And so when I first started speaking, even the smallest towns in the world, they have service organizations like Rotary Club, Lions Club, Optimist Club, Kiwanis Club. They got Women's Club. They got Chamber of Commerce. They got schools. They got churches, temples, synagogues. I used to speak everywhere, and I always had a contract. In the contract, it would say, I will waive my speaking fee of $5,000 a day. I wasn't making $5,000 a day, but they didn't know that. In exchange for, and I had 10 items on my list. So 1, a video testimonial from your organization's president. 2, 3 written testimonials from people in the audience. 3, if you're taking video, I want a copy of the video. 4, if you have a monthly newsletter, I would like to write a column in it for the next year. 5, I want 2 referrals to other organizations that could benefit from. I mean, I don't remember all of them, but it was fascinating, Norbert. I didn't know if anybody would do any of them. Well, everybody did at least one of them, and some of them did all 10. And so I was able to build up a lot of credibility very quickly because I hustled and got people to refer me and got those testimonials and things like that.
This is gold already. We're literally less than 10 minutes in, and people can take actionable actions from what you've just heard here today. You want to be a $10,000 an hour speaker, go look at what $10,000 an hour speakers look like online, and you've got your action step for what you need to accomplish, and you just listed it out for us. And I love what you just shared about that letter of agreement. That right there, if you guys take that away, that's going to help you with your speaking career. That's huge. Okay, let's talk about actually using speaking as part of your marketing, because I think there's a big misconception, and I love the way that you teach this as part of your workshop and your training and everything that you've got available for clients. A lot of people just think of speaking, and I'm even trying to understand how they think of speaking, but they don't see it as part of their marketing funnel. I see everything as a marketing funnel. Every step, every action that I take, whether it's online or even in person, is part of my marketing funnel. Everything I do in business. And yet people think of speaking and a speaking career as like, oh, I'll just get paid to speak. I'm just going to be that $10,000 an hour speaker and I'll be super successful. Can you help people reframe their thinking around how to see speaking as part of your client acquisition system? When did you discover that? When did you realize that? And how did that change your approach from speaking on stage from that point forward?
Oh, I've known that from day one. I mean, you and I are like two peas in a pod, Norbert. We're both seeing things the same way. I mean, I love it when people ask me, well, what would you, if you could go back to college and again, what would your majors be? I mean, I don't live in the past. I'm very blessed with my background. But if I would do it again, I would have double majored in psychology and business because I don't care what you do in life. You're using psychology and you're selling all the time. You might not realize that you're selling, but everybody's in sales. Everybody is trying to capture everybody else's attention. I think speaking is the fastest way to grow your business. And there's a difference between, actually, most of the people I work with aren't actual speakers. Yes. So I have two partners, Coach Jimmy Hayes Nelson and Dave Ward. I call this the professor, the performer, and the producer because my background's in academia. Coach Jimmy was a Broadway actor, and Dave is an attorney. So we bring different perspectives to things. And so we're always looking for ways to help people grow their business. Actually, a lot of the people I work with are completely terrified of speaking or they have no interest in speaking. A big difference between Coach Jimmy and me is Coach Jimmy will tell you all of the famous people and companies we've worked with. I believe in a little bit of discretion, Norbert. So I don't name I actually never give the names of anybody we've worked with. But I'll give you an example of a person we worked with to help him because I think an effective presentation, yes, it moves hearts, but more importantly, it moves the needle. I'm only evaluating our success in how many people in your audience decide to take the next step with you. Now, it can be an unpaid next step, like subscribe to my podcast or vote for me. It can be more typically, it's a paid offer, like buy my product or invest in my coaching program. But I always work with clients. I'm like, we need to know your numbers. How many people are in your audience? How many of them took action? And how do we get that number up? So I'll give you an example. We were working with a financial planner about 3 months ago, Richard. And Richard used to start off his presentation. He's like, oh, I've been in the business for 30 years. I've made my clients over $1 billion. I've worked with this famous person and this famous person. I said, Richard, stop. Time out. What are the three most important elements of real estate? He's like, what do you mean? I'm like, location, location, location. It's all right to brag, but you're doing it in the wrong part of your presentation. To me, when you're connecting with your audience, I'm a big fan of Brene Brown. She's a wonderful speaker. She talks about vulnerability, and I completely agree with her on this. This is the action item for your audience. Stop telling people your successes. Start telling them about your failures. Because not everybody in your audience has succeeded, but they've all failed. And the more you talk about your own failures, the more your audience is going to see themselves in you. And that's ultimately what you're trying to do to connect with your audience. I see you nodding. I mean, I feel, Norbert, like you and I are Baptists in the front row just saying amen to each other, but this is what we do. And so Richard, now the way he starts his presentation is we have him talk about the very first client he got 30 years ago. And it's this comedy of errors. And I have no idea why the person even invested money with him, but he noticed it immediately. So the way he gets customers is twice a week. He has about 15 couples in their 50s come to a steakhouse. They get a free steak dinner, but then they have to hear his pitch for an hour. And he said something amazing. He said, well, Usually the man and the woman, it's always a married couple. The guy's usually sitting there like this during his presentation. He said, now that he changed the opening story, that same guy instead is patting his knee. He's laughing so hard. And so, again, know your numbers. So, out of the 15 couples, he used to average 6 of those couples would book a free consultation at his office later. All we had to do was change that story. It's doubled. It's up to 12. And I'll get him up to 15 because there's a couple other things we can do in his speech. But this is how, and he didn't even know the numbers of the 6, how many of them were actually booking with him. I'm like, you need to know your numbers, man. Like, I want you, if you know that out of every 15, you're going to get 2 customers that are each worth at least $1 million to you, that gets you a lot more excited to speak. That's why I tell people, know your numbers. This is how we get you excited. So again, long answer to your short question, but connection is everything. And it's amazing to me how few people realize the importance. I mean, people look at speakers. There's a difference between being a good speaker and an incredible speaker. An incredible speaker speaks with intent. So here's an action item for your audience. One of the first activities I do with clients is, you can do this too, Norbert. Later on, I want you to sit down in a comfortable chair with a pen and paper, libation of choice, and for an hour, I want you to write down every story that's ever happened in your life to you. And I don't mean the entire story. I just mean triggers, like the time I locked myself out of the car in front of Costco, the time Dad spilled mustard on his tie at that fancy restaurant. You'll find in an hour you can come up with several hundred stories like this. So that's the first part of the exercise. The second part of the exercise is then I want you to figure out, what's this story really about? Oh, this is a story about never giving up. Oh, this is a story about taking action. Oh, this is a story about my priorities. I mean, on my computer, I have hundreds of files with tens of thousands of stories, so that when I'm putting together a presentation and I want a certain reaction from my audience, I know exactly the type of story to put in there. So I'll give you an example. I was working with a nutritionist. We'll call her Kathy. So Kathy, she grew up with this intestinal problem that no doctor could figure out how to create a proper diet for. And so she has now, her offers a 90-day program for 1997 that helps women with this intestinal problem. And one of her mistakes was she was ending her presentation on the offer, which we'll talk about. That's big no-no. But when I asked her, I said, well, what do you want your audience to do? And she's like, buy my coaching program. I'm like, yeah, I know you wanted to buy your coaching program, but people, of all people, it was Joseph Stalin who said, 1 million dead is a statistic. 1 dead is a tragedy. Translation, facts tell, but stories sell. Facts inform, stories transform. So I said, what do you want your audience to do? And she finally got to the point where she's like, well, I want them to understand they can't do this on their own. Like, so you need to hire an expert story. What do you mean? I'll give you an example. I'll leave you with this. Several years ago, my wife and I, we had theater tickets. We were dressed to the nines, driving to the theater when we got a flat tire. And my wife said, well, I'll call AAA. I'll get a tow truck here right away. I'm like, you don't have to call AAA. Oh, man, I can fix a flat tire. So I got out of the car and I opened up the trunk and I got the spare tire. And then I got the pumper thing. And then I got the kind of big jack thing. And I started trying to take off the tire. Basically, 27 minutes later, I had grease all over me. I had not fixed the flat tire. My wife is standing beside the car, shaking her head like I could have done so much better than this guy. Well, unbeknownst to me, she called AAA. This tow truck shows up. And this 17-year-old punk hops out of the truck and he fixes my flat tire in 3 minutes flat. I think there are times in life when all of us think we can do it on our own. But if you want to save time, you want to save money, you want to save a whole lot of headache and embarrassment, you hire an expert. And so what I've done is I've carefully constructed an intentional story that is now planting the seed in the audience's mind. You know what? I've tried these things before, but I never got a coach. I need to get Kathy to be my coach. That's how you use a story with intention.
This is beautiful. This is really good. You talk about these 5 C's of an engaging and powerful presentation in your report, which we're going to give you guys the link. So I want to make sure you guys download that because it's complimentary. You want to go through it. You want to learn about these 5 C's. What I found really fascinating there is that most people think to increase the number of sales, you've got to focus on the close. Oh, I suck at closing. I'm not really good in transitioning to the sale. I'm not comfortable asking for the money, blah, blah, blah. But what you just revealed there was that your client improved his conversion rate, meaning he got more sales, not by working on his close or his pitch, but on deepening the connection.
Mm-hmm.
That is huge because this is something that I really try to teach as well. Because ever since we got into online marketing in 2008, I taught so much about attraction marketing, attracting and connecting with individuals online and building that initial connection. And you talk about the power of story. This is where I think a lot of people miss the boat when they first get into speaking. And when I say speaking, I'm talking about creating content on social media. I'm talking about recording videos and doing virtual webinars. Whether you're on a physical stage or a virtual stage, the principles are absolutely the same. But how do you help your clients to move away from just talking in vague jargon, and really start speaking in the words that their audience will actually resonate with?
Yeah, that's a really good point. I mean, a lot of people try to impress people with their vocabularies, and stop that. Yeah, I'm going to make a political statement. It's not a political statement. It's about a politician. Nobody's ever accused President Trump of using a multi-syllable word, and it sounds like an insult, but there's actual mastery there. It's amazing. He's connecting to everybody. We can go back. President Reagan was a wealthy millionaire who lived in Bel Air, California, and he spoke in a way that resonated with auto workers in Detroit, Michigan, who thought they could have a beer with him. That's power. So that's what you really want to be doing. I mean, when you're speaking, what you really are is you're a farmer. You're planting seeds. And so when we're well intentioned in a presentation, we're planting a lot of different seeds there. And so, former teacher, you always have to bear with me. Everything I do either rhymes or it's alliterative. And so we came up with the 5 C's process, which before we do anything in putting together your presentation, we start with clarity. And then we go into connection, content, call to action, close. So we'll take them one at a time. Clarity. There are 2 questions you have to ask yourself before you put together a presentation. Those 2 questions are, who is your audience and what is the problem that you solve? Now, those sound like basic questions, but I'll tell you right now, Norbert, and I guarantee you have the exact same thing happen to you. 95% of my clients cannot answer one or both of these questions in a succinct manner. I mean, they'll talk, who's my audience? Well, I work with Canadian business owners, also with women, Christians in Washington. Well, we and kids. I have no idea who your audience is. What's the problem that you solve? Well, I'm a life coach. A life coach. That's great. What's a life coach? Oh, if you need a life coach, go to Starbucks. There's 7 of them sitting there right now. I mean, I have no idea what that is. We need to get crystal clear on who's your audience and what do you do with them. I'm working with a gentleman right now, and before we work together, he does exit planning for companies. And he never really understood how to explain what he did. And I said, exit planning, there's a lot of companies out there. Who are the people that you really like to work with? He's like, oh, well, CPAs, because the CPAs, it's an easy structure. I'm like, let's just focus on CPAs. Bam. I mean, he's quadrupled his business just by focusing on it sounds very counterintuitive to focus on a very specific niche. And I mean, and I'm not saying that you can't grow your niche, but you really should start small. I mean, look at a speaker like John Maxwell. John Maxwell, he started off as a Christian minister, but then he started speaking about leadership, and that was able to grow his base. And then he started speaking about communication. I mean, now he's one of the most recognizable speakers in the world. So you got to start off with clarity. I mean, if your audience is everybody, your audience is nobody. You want to really niche it down as much as possible. And then in terms of what's the problem that you solve? This is why they should come to you to hire you. I mean, just use AI. When you have a person that actually understands how to use AI, everybody thinks AI is a bad thing. Like, AI is incredible if it's used for good, and it can save you so much time and energy if you know how to prompt it. And you know this. It takes you a little bit of time, but the more you practice with AI, you get better at the prompting and understanding how to speak to it. Hey, I am a coach who focuses on middle-aged women who have lost their life purpose. I provide them with inspiration and guidance. Give me a succinct way of saying this, and I mean the AI will pop out 20 things better than you and I can think of that instantly. And so you always have to start with the clarity. And once we understand who your audience is and what's the problem that you're solving, then we can start putting together the presentation. We talked about connection. The first 5 minutes of your presentation are indisputably the most important part of your presentation, because that's when your audience is making a decision. Am I going to be present, or am I going to be engaged? I see a lot of speakers, they film themselves on stage. I'm like, here's a better strategy. Film the audience. They're going to tell you all you need to know. If your audience is on their phones, you're not doing a very good job. If they're leaning in, nodding at everything you're saying, well, then you're onto something there. Again, former teacher, everything I do has to rhyme. So in the first 5 minutes, I think you need to rap. So rap stands for, you need to show that you're relatable, demonstrate your authority, and show the audience your purpose. So relatable. Oh man, I'm just like you. I've had that exact same problem. Authority. And I solved that problem. Purpose. And now I'm on a mission to help people just like you, so you don't have to suffer the way I suffered. Now your audience is paying attention. This is a person, and don't get me wrong. I mean, there's little ninja strategies we can do if you want to make yourself sound important. I mean, I completely disagree with people trying to brag at the beginning of their presentations, but a ninja strategy is write your own introduction. So when the other person introduces you, I mean, I've written an introduction. It makes me sound like Jesus Christ. I mean, you made me sound great in your introduction. And so then, which is great, because now you've elevated me, and now I can say, yeah, Jesus Christ forgot to wear his dress socks today. And now your audience, they're going to, I mean, I'm working with an engineer at a major Silicon Valley firm. So just so you know, engineers are kind of introverted people. And this is an Indian gentleman, and he's like, Danny, please, you have to help me. You have to make me interesting and funny so people pay attention. And so he has a very difficult name to pronounce. And I'm trying to think of a different. Okay, so here's what we did. So now at the beginning of his and he's terrified of speaking, by the way. So he gets on stage. I watched him. This was a 12-minute presentation for a bunch of venture capitalists, in which he was able to raise $1.8 million just with his speech. But he started off, he's like, hello, my name is Shubhalakar Majahardi. You guys sure hope I'm pronouncing that correctly? I don't have to make him into a comedian. I just need to get him to connect, where now everybody's like smiling, like, oh, this is somebody I can relate to. This is why there's two ways to get better at speaking, Norbert. I mean, first of all, you should watch lots of speakers. I mean, I watch 10 speakers a day. I watch televangelists. I watch politicians. I watch comedians. Comedians are excellent to watch, because watch what comedians do. Kevin Hart's a short black guy. So what's he do? He makes a lot of jokes about being a short black guy. Jim Gaffigan's a big fat white guy. What's he do? He makes a lot of jokes about being a big fat white guy. By making his perceived weakness into a strength, he's eliminated. It's a strength now, which is just genius. I watch people speak to large groups. I watch them in front of smaller groups. I watch them speaking to men, to speaking to women. I mean, you're in Canada. I always have to change all of my football anecdotes, become hockey anecdotes. And instead of going to Dunkin' Donuts, we're going to Tim Hortons. You have to understand your audience. Here, I'll give you this is a ninja strategy for your audience. I watch a lot of televised award shows, because when the person wins the Academy Award, they only have 45 seconds to connect with their audience. I want to see how they use their time. Now, most people, they waste their time. They get up there, they go, I want to thank God, I want to thank the Academy. It's stupid. Nobody's paying attention. But every now and then, a person aces it. So a few years ago, there was a gentleman by the name of Joe Walker who won the Academy Award for Best Film Editing. Now, Norbert, this is Hollywood, the Academy Awards. The important people are in front of the room, the actors. And it's editing. You can tell none of them are paying attention. And Joe Walker gets on stage and he's British. He speaks very slowly and deliberately. He says, a lot of people don't know this, but when phrased properly, the term Academy Award nominee can be used as an insult. Well, now the camera's scanning the crowd. You see people leaning in like, what's he talking about? And he said, for example, yesterday I got in an argument with my 17-year-old daughter, and she said, well, Academy Award nominee Joe Walker. All of a sudden, you see everybody laughing hysterically. He gets off stage. Denzel Washington wants to meet him. Sandra Bullock wants to meet him. Brad Pitt wants to meet him. Time magazine said it was one of the highlights of the Academy Awards. Well done, Mr. Walker. 45 seconds. That's how you connect. So the first way to get better at speaking is you got to watch a lot of speakers. The second thing that you got to do, I've been blessed to have lots of wonderful coaches. You and I practice what we preach. We both have lots of coaches that have served us. One of my coaches was a guy by the name of Jim Rohn, and Jim used to say, you can't pay other people to do your push-ups. Translation, you got to do the work. You got to get out there and speak. I mean, this is why I love that you have this podcast, Norbert. I mean, look at this. How many people talk about having a podcast, but they don't ever have one? You know, and I guarantee you, the first time you did your podcast, you sucked. And the second time you did it, you sucked, but you didn't suck as bad as the first time. And now you've been doing it for a while. It's finally tuned machine. You're getting into the flow. Same thing with speaking is a teachable skill. I've worked with, there's nothing more gratifying to me. I'm not going to give you the names, but I can tell you a couple of people I've worked with that you'd never heard of them 5 years ago, and now they're commanding almost, in one case, almost 7 figures for a presentation.
Wow.
It's because they've gotten comfortable on, and actually, this one person still isn't even comfortable, and that's fine. I mean, people don't realize Barbara Streisand, she pukes before she goes on stage to sing every single time. President Reagan puked before every speech he ever gave. Bill Russell, the NBA basketball star for the Boston Celtics, puked before every game. You know, there's a lot of people that are nervous. It's a skill, though. I can teach you how to make it so. I mean, it's just the reps. Anything. It's kind of like, I'll give you another example. My youngest daughter, she's learning how to drive, and it's so cute because she gets into the car and she adjusts all of her mirrors, and she has her hands at the 10 o'clock and the 2 o'clock position. Norbert, you and I know a year from now, she'll be driving with one hand, flicking the radio, eating a Big Mac, doing her lipstick, because she's gotten used to it. She's gotten very comfortable. But at first, you're always a little bit uncomfortable.
There was so much gold in there. Again, I'm going to have to encourage people to pause and rewind to pick up all of those gold nuggets. And I had like 10 different questions that popped up in my mind as you were giving that answer, but this would literally be like a 3-hour interview if we were to do that. Maybe, you know, eventually once we're like big enough for Joe Rogan, we can have a 3-hour interview, but for now we got to keep this tight. So I'm going to go back to simplification. One of the things that I like to focus on with my coaching clients is helping them to simplify online marketing, because the people and the gurus make it way too complicated. You know, think we need to create content every single day and dance on TikTok and, you know, do every marketing strategy and have every single funnel and all this kind of stuff, when really marketing is really simple. It's just a conversation that you're having with your prospects and just simplifying that process so you can make it repeatable. So instead of chasing funnels and ads and tactics and new content strategies and what's the algorithm doing today, all that kind of stuff, I love your approach with the speaking angle. And sure, maybe speaking isn't for everybody, but for those that already have an appeal and know that, yeah, this could be for me. I mean, I could absolutely leverage the skill. I could develop this skill. Why do you think that speaking and developing the skills that you have to develop to become a good speaker is the highest, essentially the highest return on investment skill that you could develop?
Well, you'd be amazed. I'm working with a woman right now, and she's terrified of being on stage. And I said, okay, just embrace it. She's like, what do you mean? I'm like, you're shaking? Show the audience. she's like, I'm nervous. This is counterintuitive. Audiences actually want you to succeed. And when I've been in that audience, there's nothing worse than seeing a person bomb on stage.
It makes you feel uncomfortable.
Oh, it totally makes you feel uncomfortable. And so I just said, go with it. Go with it. I mean, and I was speaking in India to students in 2018. I spoke at one school, got the kids all pumped up, and the kids are coming up to me afterwards saying, "Oh, you're great, you're great." And then all of a sudden I see this little boy and he's got tears in his eyes. He's about 6 years old. And I notice he's missing his left arm. And he looks up at me. He's like, how can I succeed? And so I crouch down, I get to his eye level. I'm like, when I was your age, I went to 18 different schools before I was 12 years old. Everybody called me stupid because I stuttered. And eventually I went to a school where a teacher, she worked with me one-on-one, and she found that she could sing things to me and I could sing back. And I didn't have my stutter when I sang, kind of like the movie The King's Speech. And eventually I lost my stutter and I became a swan. But I looked at that boy in the eyes. I'm like, isn't it interesting? The little boy that everybody used to make fun of and say he didn't speak right now gets paid ridiculous amounts of money to travel the world to do what? He gets the biggest smile on his face. He's like, speak. I'm like, don't let anybody ever tell you what you can't do. Everything's possible. And I've seen this time and time again. People always, before you're an expert, you're always an amateur. I don't care what it is. Like when you're going from kindergarten to first grade, that's a big leap. You're like fearful of first grade. I don't know what it's going to be like. If you become president of the United States, the first day you're in the Oval Office, you're like, man, I don't belong here. I don't know. First time you did your podcast, like, man, there's a lot of moving parts. I don't know. You always feel uncomfortable, but you just got to stick with it. You got to stick with it. Now, why do I think speaking is the fastest way to grow your business? Because in an age of AI, I believe that we need more authentic intelligence instead of artificial intelligence. And the way you convey that is with personalization, looking at people in the eye, having an actual conversation with them, getting to know them. I mean, one of my favorite anecdotes was Winston Churchill's mother, Jenny, was a contemporary Queen Victoria. She knew every famous person of the day. And a reporter asked her once about the difference between Prime Minister Gladstone and Prime Minister Disraeli. And her response was phenomenal. She said, well, whenever I left a meeting with Prime Minister Gladstone, I left feeling like, wow, he is the most interesting person I have ever met. But whenever I left a meeting with Prime Minister Disraeli, I left feeling like, wow, I am the most interesting person he has ever met. So the heart of your question is, if you really want to have that conversation with people, people's favorite topic is themselves. So what are you doing to make sure that person feels special? I mean, I think that's not a bad objective, just to make people feel good about themselves. I think we need a lot more of that in the world.
I love it. I love it. So coming back to the fact that you are more of a results leader instead of a thought leader, which I like that distinction a lot. I'm going to stop calling myself a thought leader moving forward after this one. Give us an action step here. So for the coaches, consultants, authors, potential speakers out there listening to this, if they only did one thing after this episode to improve the way that they speak, that they come across on video, in their webinars, in their virtual presentations, or even on stage, what would you tell them to fix or focus on first?
Well, I'll give you lots. I've given you some different things that I think are important. I'll give you one I haven't given yet. And that is one of the biggest mistakes I see in most presentations is multiple calls to action. So I'll give you an example. I was on a podcast yesterday, and the hostess, she ended the episode. She said, oh, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Make sure you like, subscribe, and give us a 5-star review. And we got off the air. I'm like, you just asked your audience to do 3 different things. They're not going to do any of them. Again, former teacher, everything has to rhyme. Choices confuse and cause you to lose. The example I like to give people is if you look at the largest grocery store chains, the Krogers, the Smiths, the Ralphs, the whatever your Publix, whatever the regional grocery store, In the United States last year, one grocery store beat them all, and it was Trader Joe's. And the reason is when you walk into your regular grocery store looking for mustard, there's 50 different types of mustard. When you go into a Trader Joe's looking for mustard, there's one. It's called mustard. They made the choice for you. And there's a lot of power in that. And so people that are listening, especially coaches, I see even coaches in presentations, they'll say, hey, here's my Facebook page, my Twitter, here's my website. You're overwhelming the audience. Give them one specific action that you want them to do. What do you like? That's why what you do is getting all you need. Give me that email. Get me that email, because once that email, I have that, I like Gary V talks about jab, jab, hook, serve, ask, essentially. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think that's an ethical way of doing business. Is the more you provide for people. Like, I work with people that are like, I don't want to sound salesy. I'm like, well, here's a strategy for you. Don't sell, just serve. Look at your audience, like they're starving to death. You have food. If they don't get it, they will starve to death. That's a different mindset than saying, hey, I think I'm a little bit different than a lot of coaches, because I see a lot of people, and this is how Coach Jimmy and I met each other, was we were working with a company where we trained people, and they wanted us to train people to talk about their most tragic moment of their life. And there's 3 reasons why I refuse to do that, Norbert. I mean, first of all, the world just survived a global pandemic. Everybody's had a lot of bad stuff happen to them. I don't think we need another sad story. I think people need more stories of hope. Second of all, I'm teaching you how to create what I call a well-crafted story. Politicians would call it a stump speech, and superhero movies, they call it your origin story. You can call it peanut butter and jelly. It doesn't matter what you call it. This is a presentation that you're going to deliver again and again. You're going to have it memorized like the Lord's Prayer or the national anthem. Like, you're not even going to have to think about this, but you're going to deliver it again and again to get more customers. Do you really want to share the saddest moment of your life again and again? I mean, I've got a friend, his daughter was killed in a school shooting. He's delivered that presentation over 1,000 times. I mean, I have no idea how he does. He's stronger than me. I could never talk about that. And third, this is where people get angry with me. I have one objective when I'm on stage. I want you to leave feeling better than when you came in. I want you laughing, smiling, happy. I think there's something admirable about that as an objective. I believe the people that tell the same sad story again and again, by the 20th time they're telling that story, now those are crocodile tears, and now they're being manipulative. And I'm not saying it's not an effective sales strategy. You and I know it's a very effective sales strategy. But I personally don't want to have to take a shower after I get off stage because I just manipulated my audience. There are ethical ways to do business. And so, getting to the meat of your question, the 2 things are: have one call to action, and please, like, be ethical, have fun up there. I want you having fun on stage. People are scared enough as it is. You might as well be enjoying yourself.
What I love is the way that you're blending ethics and sales, because I really get frustrated with the negative connotations that so many people have around selling and around sales. And it really is just the way that we shift our perspective and look at it. Well, are you trying to be a manipulative salesperson, or are you trying to be an ethical service provider?
Right.
And that starts with you, not with them. And I think that shift is so, so important.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with persuading people. I mean, there's nothing wrong. There's a difference between persuasion and manipulation. Manipulation is trying to get a person to do something they not want to do. Persuasion is getting a reluctant person to see the light. Like, I mean, you need to do this. You don't know that, and I'm gonna provide stories that are gonna get you to make that decision on your own. That, hey, you know what? Maybe this is something I should be doing.
Yeah, that's the big distinction, I think, between persuasion and manipulation. You got to figure out how, because you have to improve your persuasive skills, right? Your ability to influence an audience is critical. You've got to develop those skills, but that doesn't mean that you need to be manipulative. And I think you've shown a very good example of that. All right, Danny, let's share with people where they can get more information from you, where they can connect and reach out with you. This has been an incredible conversation. So just tell people how they can get more of Dr. Danny Brassell and apply these principles that you teach.
Well, as a thank you to you, Norbert, and your audience for having to listen to me today, I want to give everybody a freebie. So if you go to freestoryguide.com, guide like a tour guide.com, I'm going to give everybody their own personal well-crafted story blueprint. What this is the actual process that Coach Jimmy and I take our clients through so they know how to create their own well-crafted stories. What this does for you is it takes the guesswork out of where do I put this and where's the most effective place to put this in my presentation. What this means for you is you have a peace of mind of a tool that's going to provide a system to get you clients again and again and increase your influence. You can get that at freestoryguide.com. And Norbert, I really appreciate you having me on today. I know I'm going to take you up on that free workshop offer you offered at the beginning of the show. I mean, I don't understand why people don't do these things. Like, I go to these things all the time, and I learn, even as a teacher, when I'm observing teachers and people like, why'd you watch that teacher? That teacher's horrible. I'm like, I still learned 5 things I would never do. That's important. With your workshop, I guarantee you I'll probably have 15 pages of notes. I won't steal any of your ideas. I will liberate your ideas and share them with more people. And you feel free to liberate anything you want from me.
I think you'll be nodding your head and smiling as much as I'm nodding my head and smiling listening to you, because you literally, I'm excited for my clients to listen to this presentation, because they're just going to hear so many repetitions of things that I've been sharing with them already. But I love the way that you apply it into speaking. So, Dr. Danny, I want to thank you so much for being here, for sharing of your time and your wisdom and experience. I learned so much just from this interview here. So I'll be sure to download your guide and check out your workshop as well, and learn what more I can learn from you as well. Thank you so much. We're going to leave all of the links to Dr. Danny's free guide that he's giving you, as well as his social media platforms, so you can connect with him right there. And if you enjoyed this episode, please share it with your network and your audience. We could really use the support as we're growing this podcast channel and increasing and how many people we can reach with these incredible messages. Thank you again, Dr. Danny. This has been a conversation between two coaches.